Hello everyone and welcome back to Masterclass Excel. I'm Tom. In our first lesson, we covered the essential formulas in Excel, sum, average, and count, in order to help you perform the most basic calculations that Excel offers, and the most common ones that people use. The example we used, we only had 9 items in our data set. But what happens when your data grows? What happens if you have hundreds or thousands of rows? And then simply looking at the list can become difficult. So today what we're going to do is learn how to keep that data organized. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to alphabetize and reorder your data using sort. We're going to be able to isolate specific information using the filter. And we're going to learn how to keep our headers visible while scrolling using freeze panes. So today we'll be using a new, larger customer sales list. But you'll see how these tools are essential for managing any spreadsheet, including the budget we built in our last session. Let's dive in. First, let's take a look at freeze panes. When you're working with small lists, it's easy to see all of your headers. But with a long list, as soon as you start to scroll down, your column titles disappear, and you lose track of what the data represents. So to fix this, we're going to use the freeze panes feature. This is located in the View tab at the top of the Excel window. And you'll notice here we've got a button for freezing panes. Now what we want to do here is we want to make sure that our headers stay visible even if we scroll down through our data. So to do that, we're going to click Freeze Panes, and there are a couple options here. We're going to go with the Freeze Top Row option. Now you'll notice it appears to have given a bit of an indicator by making this line between rows 1 and 2 a little bit darker than the rest of the lines in the cells in the rest of the spreadsheet. This is telling you that the top row has been frozen. So now watch what happens. The headers stay anchored to the top of the screen. Even if we scroll all the way to the bottom of our customer list, we're always going to know this is the customer name column, the region column, and the sales amount column. It makes analyzing large sets of data significantly easier and less prone to errors. Now let's talk about sorting. Sorting is going to allow you to reorder your data to make it more readable. In this customer list, the names are currently in no particular order. So to alphabetize them, we're going to select all the data under the headers. Now we can do this by clicking and dragging, but this is going to take us a while. So instead, there are some keyboard shortcuts I'd like to show you right now, which are useful just for navigating around your screen. If you press Control down, it'll take you all the way down to the bottom of your data. Control right arrow brings you to the far right column. Control up will bring you all the way back to the top. Now notice, because we've freezed our panes, we're still only viewing rows starting at 100. So if I push the down arrow, it brings me right back to the beginning of our list. Now to select cells using the keyboard, you would hold Shift and then arrow in the direction you want to select. So we're going to select this whole row, Shift right, and we're also going to Shift down, 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 down. This also seems like it's taking too long, but remember before we used Control arrow to bring us all the way to the end of our data set. We can do the same thing using Control Shift, and it will actually select the cells that we're navigating to using the Control arrow shortcut. So let's try that. Control Shift arrow to the right, and you can see it selects all 3 columns of data for the first row. And now if I press Control Shift down, we've automatically selected the entire data set. And what we wanted to do was sort this information. So we're going to go to the Data tab at the top of the Excel window, click that, and you'll notice this Sort button here. There are some shortcut buttons. You can sort it alphabetically A to Z. You can sort it reverse alphabetically from Z to A. And there are other options if you click the Sort button. But we know we want to sort this in alphabetical order, so we're going to click the A to Z button. And watch what happens. It sorts everything and carries the rest of the information from the region and sales amount along with each customer name based on where that name falls in the alphabet. And you aren't limited to text either. Again, if we use our keyboard shortcuts to select all the data, that's Control Shift right, Control Shift down, and then I'll scroll back to the top. And instead of clicking A to Z, I'm going to click the Sort button to see what options we have. And this dialog box shows up, and it's asking me how I'd want to sort. So do we want to sort each row based on the customer name, the region, or the sales amount? Well, let's say we want to see the highest sales at the top. So we'll say sort by sales amount. and it defaults to smallest to largest, which is not what we want. We want to see the largest first. So let's say largest to smallest, and click OK, and watch the sales amount column. There we go. It has now sorted our data set, so the highest amounts appear at the top of the list. So another example, just to kind of close the loop here, let's try Control-Shift-Right, Control-Shift-Down to select everything in the data set. And this time, let's sort by region. So sort by region, cell values, and we're going to say A to Z. So we would expect to see east, north, south, west. There we go. So it's sorting all the east regions, and then the north, and then south, and then west. Okay, so sorting changes the order, but filtering allows you to hide data that you don't need. Think of it as a kind of a search engine for your spreadsheet. Now we're going to stay on the Data tab, and right next to Sort, you'll see a button that says Filter. We have the A1 cell selected, and we're going to click Filter, and you'll notice that we have a little drop-down arrow on the right side of each of our column headers. And just to make this a little bit easier to read, I'm going to highlight these three columns, and I'm going to double-click either the break between the A and B columns or the B and C columns, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to double-click that. And what that does is stretches the column so you can easily read everything in each cell. So we've added our filter. Let's say, for example, that we just want to see the customers from the North region. I'm going to click the arrow in the region column, and I'm going to uncheck the Select All, and I only want to see North. We'll check North and say OK. Now it's only showing us the customers that are in the North region. I can now say East if I just want to see East. Or let's say I want to see everything in the North and in the West. So now we're only seeing customers that are either in the North or West regions. If we want to clear this filter, you can either click this Clear Filter button, and it does so, or similarly, we've got a filter on East and North. You can just click Select All, and it will essentially undo your filter. I want you to pay attention to the left side here. When I do select a filter, let's say South, say OK, the color of these rows has changed. It's no longer white, it is now blue, and that's telling you that you currently have a filter on that not all the data in your data set is visible. Once I take that filter off, clear the filter, they return to white. So now everything is visible. So it's important to note when we're filtering on something, we're not deleting east, south, and west. We're only hiding them. So the thing that we care about in that moment is all that's visible. So let's try that in the customer name column. I mentioned before you can think of filter as a sort of search on your Excel spreadsheet. So now let's investigate the filter dropdown for a moment. In the region column, we have 4 distinct columns that appear throughout the data set. Those are East, North, South, and West. Customer name, we've got a lot more options because all of these names are distinct. Now say I want to see just one particular person, and let's say that person is Ashley Taylor for the sake of argument. You'll notice there's a search box here in the filter dropdown. So let's say we want to see all the sales made to Ashley Taylor. I start typing the word Ashley, and there we go. And you can either click OK, or you can just hit Enter. We can just see the information related to the customer, Ashley Taylor. And this works for multiple selections. For example, if you've got a number of people with the same name, such as Angela, we have 3 Angelas. I'll click OK, and we see the information for all 3 Angelas. So filter is an incredibly useful tool that will allow you to really drill down to the information you want to see. Now in the sales amount column, we're going to try filter again. Let's take a look at the options here. You'll see there's a number filters capability. And there are several options here, including greater than, less than, top 10. Let's try greater than. If I click greater than, I'm going to get a window that is asking me to enter a value that's greater than a certain number. So let's say we want to see all the sales higher than 3,000. So let's see what that does. We're going to ignore this second part for a moment. We're going to click OK. And now it's only showing us values that are greater than 3,000. Now let's look at that number filter again. I'm going to click greater than, and we do have the option. We want to see greater than 3,000. Let's say I want to see values that are less than a certain value. And let's say that value is 4,000. Click OK. And now it's only showing us values in the sales amount column that are between 3,000 and 4,000, and it's hiding everything else. So there are a lot of options when it comes to number filters, and you can give it multiple parameters depending on what you want to be looking at. Now let's also take a look at this top 10 option. If I click top 10, it's going to give me the top 10 items, the 10 highest values in the sales amount column. So let's click OK and see what happens. There we go. So it's showing us which 10 customers spent the most money. I'm going to clear that filter. Quick way to get back to viewing all of our information. And I definitely encourage people to play around, especially with the number filter options. There are a lot of capabilities hidden just in this one menu, and depending on what you're looking for in your data set, they can be incredibly handy instead of just having to sift through many, many rows of data. All right, so let's do a quick recap of what we've learned. You now know how to lock your headers by using freeze panes on the View tab. You know how to reorganize your lists by selecting the data. And again, let's take a look at that shortcut. Control-Shift right, Control-Shift down. And then sorting either A to Z, Z to A, or specifically by whichever column you want to sort by. And we've also taken a look at the filters to isolate exactly the data that you want to be looking at. One other quick trick, once you do have a filter on your data set, you'll notice that there are sort options built into the filter dropdown. So you can sort A to Z simply by clicking the filter dropdown, and you don't even have to worry about clicking the sort buttons up here. You can do this by region, sort A to Z. Let's sort it backwards just for fun. Sort it Z to A, and we can also sort by our sales amount. Smallest to largest. Karen Perez didn't spend a whole lot of money, but Stephanie Clark sure did. And again, it's using the most common sort options right there in the filter dropdown. These three skills are the backbone of data cleanup in Excel. You can practice these on your household budget or your own work spreadsheets, and you'll find yourself navigating large workbooks with confidence. So that's it for today's lesson. I hope you learned something, and stay tuned because we've got a whole lot more to go through.